Hi everyone, I'm talking to Adam Wade, who's a UKIP chap who's going to be running for a council position at Waverly Borough Council. How you doing, Adam?
Good and yourself, Carl. Thank
Tired.
you for young kids will do that.
Yeah, it's not just the kids either. But so can I ask you about your background? Would you like to tell me, tell people something about yourself?
I suppose, as you can hear from the accent, I'm a dirty foreigner and I'm trying to
You're a
kick myself
Sappho.
out. That's it.
Mm.
And I'm trying to get in so I can kick myself out because we hate foreigners at UKIP, don't we?
Oh yeah. We can't stand them. But no. Tell people how you came to be in Britain from South Africa.
uh, f- for a better future for the kids. My wife's a British citizen.
Hmm.
I must check my British citizenship, but my first ever passport was a British passport. So I probably fall under the category of being a citizen. But my mother's a Belgian, not from Brussels, don't worry, not from the heart of the beast.
I don't
And
blame the Belgians for Brussels. I don't think they had that much of a choice, to be honest.
uh, every conflict, they let people use them as a thoroughfare.
Well,
Um,
that's not fair. They did resist the Nazis. It's just it's a
oh,
small country, isn't it?
there's a story. There's a story in that about my grandfather, but that's
Hmm.
another story. Yeah, so I've been here 7 years now, and one of the reasons for coming was I was in a. I had to close my business down in South Africa because obviously the whole global financial collapse and that the product I had was seen as a luxury for sort of the restaurant industry
Right.
and not as a necessity. So I had to close that down and I was looking for work and the only interviews I was getting was basically for a junior photocopy salesman. And I would sit in the interview and the people would say, do you realize this is a junior position, not managerial or anything? And I said, yes, I know. It's all that I can get. And this is basically the result of the very heavy-handed BEE policies in South Africa, Black
Right.
Economic Empowerment, where it's affirmative action for the majority.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I suppose you know that whole story of being white and male doesn't put you very high on the pecking order these days.
I'm reasonably familiar with what's happening in South Africa, and I think affirmative action for the majority is a good way of putting it. 'Cause it kind of it's a bit of a blow, isn't it? When you say it like that, it's you realise that what you're talking about is oppression of a minority. But right, okay, so you've come to the United Kingdom, and how do you find it?
Ah, I like it here. A lot of people complain about the weather, but getting strung up on that stuff, it's nothing you can make change in. So
Yeah,
you might as well just adopt that British mentality and keep plodding along, keep on keeping on.
yeah. So
Yeah, it's good here.
yeah, yeah, it's not so bad, and the weather isn't that bad. I think that the problems with the weather are overblown. But so tell me about Waverley then, because I actually know very very little about the region that you're in. I don't think I've ever been there. What's it like there? What are the problems?
Well, it's Surrey, darling.
I'm not
That says
posh
it.
enough to go to Surrey. They don't let me in.
Yeah, no, you need passports to get in here.
Yeah.
I know you're not from Swindon, but you're currently of Swindon. So we
Yes.
we look down on your type.
Oh yes, you do. Yes.
Uh,
Absolutely.
oh yes, I mean it's what you can picture it as. It's very. You could basically pin a Tory rosette onto a donkey here, and it will get elected in.
That's exactly what they say about pigs in Wales and Labour. And in the north as well. To be honest, put a red rosette on a pig, and people vote for it. It really is tribal, isn't it, in that regard?
Oh yes, and like I was telling you before we started this, the ward I'm running in elects three councillors. The candidates that are running are me as UKIP, three Tories, 3 Lib Dems, 0 Labour.
So it's not all bad then.
And the last time a Labour person ran in this ward, I think they picked up 6% of the vote.
Oof. So yeah, not great then. So how do UKIP tend to do in that ward?
I'm actually the first ever UKIP councillor candidate that stood in this
Really?
ward. Yeah. So
Well, I mean,
it would be a first.
to be fair, you couldn't have picked a better time then, because the Conservative Party looks like it's falling apart at the moment. So surely it's like prime recruiting ground for people who are disaffected with the Tories.
Oh yeah, and you look at the national polling. What UKIP's fluctuating between 6 and 8%,
Something like that,
roughly. I mean, so far I've walking the beat. I've delivered about 1,500 flyers. I've got more positive feedback than negative feedback.
Fab.
So on that ratio, that shows. I mean, that's a small pool, but that shows a better than 1 in 12, according to the national average. So there's unfortunately, when I do speak to people, almost no one wants to speak about the local issue policies. You can guess which the only topic that comes up is.
Yeah. So how did that area vote in the referendum then?
40, I think low 40% leave. So
Right, okay. So it's a
strong
Remain
opinion.
area. Right, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so obviously I've got my back against the wall a bit.
Right, okay.
But the Tories are doing us massive favors.
I bet they are. I can honestly bet they are. So, I mean, at least, I mean, if you're the first UKIP representative, at least what that means is that anyone who has been itching to sort of push the more sort of hardline Brexiteer area, at least they've now got somewhere to actually go. Because surely before they were probably quite lost, right?
And even more than that, anyone who's slightly in favor of Brexit, they've got somewhere to go.
Yeah.
Because who are the rest? The rest are Tories and Lib Dems.
Yeah, absolutely.
They all want to remain.
Yeah, and for anyone who's not aware, the Lib Dems are a hardcore Remain faction as well. The entire party seems to have no dissent in it with regards to that. I don't think I'm aware of a single Lib Dem, like just a prominent member of the party, who is even vaguely questioning the concept of Remain, which is weird. I mean, I've never seen such a homogeneous... Well, I mean, I suppose UKIP are quite homogeneous about leaving, so maybe I shouldn't judge so quickly. But right, okay. So how do you feel
the illiberal non-democrats?
Yes. Well, voting is a problem for the Liberal Democrats. You have to understand. No, they're rather disappointing, to be honest. With the whole, they're very pro hate speech laws. They're very much anti the referendum. So it's weird that they do consider themselves to be liberal and democratic. But what are you going to do?
I read their manifesto the other day, and they are very pro social engineering. We want more women in the FTSE 250 groups, and it's how they can call themselves liberal is beyond me.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's one of those words that has essentially been co-opted by the far left, or they've at least given it a good go. And in the Lib Dems, it seems to have absolutely taken root. I mean, I don't even think they question why they do the things that they do. That's the thing. Because I was thinking about I saw an article with the Prime Minister of New Zealand. Her name escapes me at the moment, but she was saying how she was just operating on intuition rather than reason. With regards to what the repeatedly like illiberal things that New Zealand's doing in the wake of the Christchurch tragedy. So it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, you are not following a guiding set of principles when you do that. You're just reacting on the gut and what feels good, and then that tends to lead you down the path of Labour, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, that's. Let's hope no one in this country goes as far as she has. I mean, she's going on a virtue signaling crusade.
That's true. That's true. That's a great way of putting it.
One-woman army.
But that's exactly right. And it's not just one woman though, is it? Because the resolution that they had to outlaw firearms passed with wild acclaim. So who knows why New Zealand have decided that's a wise thing to do, is do what the fascists want them to do.
But we must. Speaking about fascists,
yes.
Obviously UKIP being a fascist party, I see we've both worn black to sort of doff the cap to Benito.
Oh yeah, that was it. It's not that my kid always gets my shirts dirty and I have to change them like 2 or 3 times a day. It's really a dog whistle to the fascists of the 1930s. That's all right. But yeah, so what is it that you'd like to do as a councillor in Waverly?
The platform I'm running on is not trying to too much focus on the local specifics, because I'm going up against 2 incumbents, 3 people that have been a councillor in this ward, and it's only me and another Tory that have not been. So I could never compete with them on their inner knowledge of the workings of the council.
Yeah.
Because they would steamroll me, because they're there at the meetings regularly. Yeah. So I've also been trying to push a sort of broader picture that I think a good thing for UKIP to use is to, yes, the Tories and Labour might differ on funding to the NHS every election cycle, but on the fundamental principles that made this country the envy of the world politically, with liberal democracy, they're both eroding those principles. So they're eroding the foundation it's built on. So at a base level, they're pretty much the same.
I mean, I don't even know if you can critique the difference between their NHS funding. The Conservatives are very proud of how much extra money they're giving to the NHS, which, I mean, you would think from a Conservative perspective, they'd be saying, well, why do we have to keep giving money to the NHS? Why is it continually, what was the loss of 20 billion, I think Theresa May promised? And it's like, well, Jesus Christ, Theresa, why is that the case? Why does this seem to be an unsustainable venture? But then they'd have to address the concept of open borders, wouldn't they? So,
yeah,
it's
6 million in 19 years.
It's pretty staggering, considering that's 10% of the country. That's a 10% increase, which is huge.
And
absolutely
huge. At that rate, there's no ways you can train doctors and nurses quickly enough.
No, so we need more immigration for that.
Open borders.
Yeah, it's absolute lunacy. So you're getting a lot of good feedback, just presenting this sort of, I guess, the sort of more liberal worldview in contrast to the Labour-Tory consensus. Is that what?
Yes, that's, and I have people calling me across the street when they see I'm carrying the flyers. They just want to vent.
Really?
They just want someone to talk to.
Yeah.
I was speaking to an old guy washing his car 2 days ago, and he was formulating a plot, and we came to an agreement that we need to get a boat from the Falklands, sail it up the Thames, park it outside the Houses of Parliament, load them all on, and sink it over the Mariana Trench. That's what he was saying.
Well, I mean, we could just send them to the Falkland Islands, really, where they can't really do too much damage. I mean, that way we don't get in trouble and we get rid of the problem.
and then give the Falklands back to Argentina as a gift.
Oh my God, it's only a matter of time until Jeremy Corbyn gets into power and actually does give them the Falklands. The Argentinians have never had a claim to the Falkland Islands, right? I looked into this a while ago, and they never owned it. It was an empty island when the British arrived, and they effectively they took it off the Spanish, but the Spanish only held it nominally because they happened to be near it, and so it's like there is just no, and that was before the Argentina was a country, so there's no legitimate claim there. It's unbelievable. But anyway, I didn't mean to go off into the weeds there. Sorry.
But like you said, Corbyn will give it back to them. Yeah. I suppose then he'll also give Northern Ireland to the IRA.
He probably would. He probably would. Like he is their best friend. I've got a live show coming up where I'm just going to go through Jeremy Corbyn's history of essentially supporting everyone who hates Britain, and be like, look, is this really a guy you want to elect? But again, anyway, I don't want to get off in the weeds. So so tell me more about Waverly and what's been going on. Have you got any interesting stories?
I've had a few people speak to me about how much, unless there's proof, it's just mere conspiracy, but how much corruption is going on here, how council tenders for repainting buildings and all of that are being given to people in Maidstone and Reading, and so I'm going to try to do a bit of digging on that.
Yeah.
But obviously at the moment it's unfounded.
I've got to say, when you've got like a sort of homogenous area like that though, and you get people serving in councils for long periods of time, that's when corruption does tend to creep in though, isn't it? It's
for the two that are running again. One of the Tories is not running again, but for the two that are running again, they've been there since 2007.
Christ, yeah, so 12 years.
And before that was 3 Lib Dems, and before that was Tory as far back as I bothered looking.
Right.
So it's they I suppose they've got complacent because there's really no one threatening their position.
Yes.
Waverly as a borough, I think, because one Tory was kicked out because he hadn't gone to council meetings for however long.
Right.
But I think about 49 of the 57 are Tories. 6 of them are Farnham Residents Association, which obviously represent Farnham in Waverly. But yeah, so it's a 90% Tory area, apart from a little breakaway local residents group and 1 Lib Dem.
Right. So what is it? What is exactly that you need? Do you need? I take it you need local activists who are interested in helping the UKIP cause.
Oh yes, yeah. That would be, because at the moment I've had 1 or 2 people able to help me out a little bit, but if you can imagine, I've got to work around work, and in the last 3 days, I didn't do any today, but in the last 3 days, I've gone to 1,500 houses.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of mileage. And then wanting to organize, set up a little stall, and it's a lot of work. For someone who didn't want to get involved in politics until recently, it's a lot of work.
I feel you on that one. With the announcement of the actual fact that we are going to have MEP elections, I'm looking at the scope of the area that I've got to canvass, and I'm so glad that so many people join my Discord to help in the local areas, because it's gonna be tiring. But right, okay. So how can people get in contact with you if they'd like to come and help?
Well, I suppose it doesn't help me speaking about my flyer. I've got all my contact details on the flyer, because I've said voters should be able to get hold of their candidates and councillors easily. But I've got an email address specifically for this, which is ukipadam@gmail.com. Then I use my Twitter also, which is eveless_Adam. And then I'm trying to use YouTube also to sort of document the campaign. It's sort of a real time. I've privated all my other videos at the moment because I just want to focus on this. And so I'm using, I suppose if people just search UKIP Adam, it will come up. So the day-to-day goings of the whole campaign. Social media is going to play a much bigger part with every election cycle now in politics. You saw it start with Trump using Twitter in 2016, and in at most 2 generations from now, a person's entire history is going to be on the internet from school days. So people are going to have to get used to seeing people in a normal light, not this perfect politician wheeled out on a little trolley to do their speaking gig and then wheeled back away in their suit.
Yeah.
They're going to have to get used to seeing people occasionally calling the far right the N-word.
Well, listen, I stand by my insulting of the Nazis. I stand by that. I'm not going to take that back. So yeah, no, but I think you're absolutely right. And you know what I find really interesting is if you think about it, like, what would Winston Churchill's Twitter account have looked like? It probably wouldn't have been very politically correct, would it? You know, it's the sort of like modern corporate politicians are very much a phenomenon of the modern age. And if you think back to like just any past era, these sort of people just didn't exist, and they spoke their minds very freely, and often they said some outrageous things. You know, so I find it very interesting that social media, like you say, you know, a person's entire history is going to be on there. So you're going to have to get used to seeing them saying whatever crosses their mind at the time, 5 years back, you know. So I find it very interesting you brought that up, because I've been thinking about this myself. Like, are we going to end up returning to an era of politicians who are not like these perfectly polished demigods on TV? Are we going to return to an era where politicians were kind of dicks, you know?
or not even necessarily dicks, just real human beings who have a drink, who some smoke, well, some drink, some smoke, some cuss and swear, but a Winston Churchill Twitter account would be a place of wonder and magic.
It absolutely would, wouldn't it? It would. I can't imagine he'd pull his punches, you know.
Because no one, from how we see politicians now, no one can buy that that's them in real life.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But the thing is, oh, sorry, go on.
They'll get home after an interview where they've been prim and proper on TV and say to their spouse, "Jesus, that person was an arsehole."
Yeah. Yeah.
And people are going to have to get used to them being normal people again, because it's coming.
But what I find really strange about it is the fact that, and I guess it is like the baby boomer generation that this is the product of, but it's weird how they want to vote for people like that, because I don't trust that. You know, I don't trust someone who's going to pretend to be perfect and sanitized all the time. I mean, I can't relate to that. That doesn't represent me, and I don't think it really represents anyone else. So why are people voting for this? It's almost like they want to sort of give away the ability to really be, I don't know, to really be informed about what's going on and have a veil of pleasant lies. That's how I always view it, you know.
Yes, a veil of pleasant lies. Yes, but that's become the norm now. That whole facade is what people are expecting of politics. Yes. Another big reason why they absolutely lost their minds with Trump, because he didn't have that facade of pleasantry and they don't. It's a change from the paradigm which has become the whole prim and proper, well-kept, never does any wrong, perfect little politician. It's very strange.
Yeah, honestly, that's why I'm just enjoying watching the sort of, you know, the dissident, I guess you would call them the right-wing populists coming to power, because they're just speaking their mind, and because of social media they can actually just say, you know, bring their message straight to people, and it's actually really refreshing, because I really think that the stultification of politics is because of this kind of prim and proper form of politics, because it creates a massive barrier to entry for just regular folk who aren't like that, you know.
Yes, it's almost as if you've had to be training for it your entire life.
Well, you say almost as if, but they do that at places like Eton, don't they?
Oh, yes.
They actually have classes on like media management and, you know, personality management and things like this to become polished politicians. And I like with Boris Johnson, that was part of his charm, wasn't it? He was kind of a bumbling oaf who said some sort of outrageous things, but, you know, that was one of the reasons people like him. So I don't know why everyone's so afraid of politicians just being real people. I mean, I don't see the fear.
I think it's the politicians themselves who will look for those cracks.
Yes.
Look for those bits of realism and use it against that other person, you know, to jostle for position. It's how many politicians must have made a sort of chirp about how Boris Johnson's hair is kept, and
Yes.
just those little undermining digs to. So eventually, if it doesn't change, you're going to have politicians that are cast in marble.
Yes, and
to be wheeled out.
That's a great way of phrasing it too. And you know that they're going to be eminently controlled by their handlers as well. That's the thing I think I like with Donald Trump. I like the fact that I don't really think that any of this, any of the people around him really are controlling what he's doing. I think he's too much of a force of nature to really be, he doesn't care about the optics. He clearly doesn't.
And the people who are caring about the optics are really in it for themselves.
Yes.
If that when the handlers tell them do this, do that, it's not for the betterment of who they represent. It's for the betterment of their political future. You see it with the Tories now. My own local MP in Waverly is Jeremy Hunt. Terrible stutter.
Yes.
And he spoke up a little bit. Now he's gone quiet, and you see they're all playing different tactical games because they know Theresa May's end is coming. So the Tories are all playing tactical games of how they can one up in the next running, and now Labour's also playing tactical games of right. Let's capitalize on this Tory failure of Brexit. So who's talking about Brexit?
Yep.
Who's actually trying to do something about that rather than just how do I get ahead in this game now?
Yeah, poor old Jacob Rees-Mogg, and he's come to the conclusion that Theresa May's deal is the best deal, which is like, well, that's great. I too agree that we should surrender to Europe, Mr. Mogg.
But how did him and Johnson suddenly do an about face?
Party men. That's why they're party men.
Exactly. It's not we suddenly woke up and came to our senses. Speaking of Jacob Rees-Mogg, how posh is his sister's name? I can't even remember it off the top of my head now, and I just thought, oh, you're joking.
I know. Now, isn't that an interesting thing? I haven't really wanted to attack the Brexit Party, but I've noticed they've taken a few swings at UKIP recently, and not just Farage, but like other members like lower down the chain, and people I'm fond of as well. This is the thing that I'm finding kind of disappointing. And same with Farage. I'm still fond of Farage, So it's one of those things where I'm watching them take swings. I'm like, okay, yeah, but how many double-barreled names do you have in the Brexit Party at this point? You are the party of the sort of London-centric Tories who are not happy with Theresa May and the Remain faction. There's a very clear class divide going on, and Jared Batten's not an upper class man. He's he's the one speaking at the rallies where it's all the working class Tommy fans turning up. It's very, very clear that this is a London and sort of southeast / the rest of the country divide. And I'm surprised how unself-aware about it they are, because Farage called all of these people at the Day for Freedom thugs. And it's like, man, it was just a family hangout, basically.
It's and a lot of people around the world don't understand the class divide of this country until you've actually been here. It is, I suppose, it's the biggest dividing line in this country. Color's not really a big thing like in the US. It's class, and this was it My Fair Lady. He has a song in it about the lady's accent, or in the musical remake. But it is all about accent as well. It's all expressed via the accent. You're like I'm very clearly sort of like middle class. But I'm a low class pleb when I go to London. Some of the accents I hear there, and people say, "Oh, you've got such a posh accent." It's like, not really. I'm just clear, I think, But if they think you've got a posh accent, contrast you to Rees-Mogg.
Exactly. I am a proper pleb when it comes to when compared to them. But you are right. It's a huge dividing line, and I think there's a part of the British psyche that likes that. I think there's a part of the British psyche that has this kind of romantic view of the sort of 19th century aristocracy being great statesmen, well educated, and Mogg represents this in many ways. And they call him, the right honourable member for the 18th century, don't they?
Yes.
And honestly, I think I would be proud of that if I was Mogg. But I do think there is a part of people's psyche in Britain where they do expect that kind of thing, but that's not the same thing as being a corporate politician, is it?
No, that's, you see, you can come from different classes, but still agree on points. Whereas, yeah, I suppose corporatism is a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
If that's what you were speaking about, corporatism.
Yeah, well,
or
even
corporate politics.
Yeah, I mean, like with Jacob Rees-Mogg, like I'm pretty well disposed to the guy, and I find it very interesting how the left-wing allegations of him being upper class, he just owns it, and so it just slides off him because it's just an observation, but they try to make it a character judgment, but yeah, it's just a sad state of affairs, and I think it's one that we're really going to have to start pushing forward on. So anyway, yeah, right. So I'll put your links in the description so people can get hold of you if they're in the local area in Surrey and Waverly, which I'm sure would be greatly appreciated for you.
Oh yes, any help will be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, because I think it's important for people to remember that like the MEP elections and the national MP elections. I mean, they're the big show, but so much of the hard and like the real work is done at the local level, but it's not glamorous, and so people don't pay attention to it. It doesn't get any sort of traction. But this it's where UKIP really do stand to make a lot of good gains, especially in Tory strongholds, where the Tories are basically falling apart. And as you say, people are crying out for some actual representation. So sorry again.
Oh, sorry. If we just have a look at UKIP representation in these local elections compared to the last ones was what, 400 and something odd candidates? Mm-hmm. Now it's 1,400 odd.
Yeah.
So it's nearly 4 times. And those aren't career politicians. Those are people who have just thought, I'm not being represented and no one's here to represent me, so I might as well throw my hat in the ring.
You've got to stand up and do it, haven't you? Because otherwise, if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? It'll always be true that. It will always be true. But right, Adam, honestly, best of luck, man. It was a real pleasure to talk to you, and it's been a really fun conversation as well. I've really enjoyed it. I'll leave all your links in the description, and if you're watching this and you're anywhere in the local area and you want to pitch in and get involved and actually help make a change for the better, do give them a shout. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you, Carl.
No problem at all. Good
luck to you on... You've got a far bigger cow to cut than I do.
Oh God, it's the hit pieces are already coming out. I'm loving it. The one in the Independent was actually not too bad. It was actually not really a hit piece. It was actually quite an accurate description of me. They call me an anti-feminist. I was like, well, I'll own that, But the one in Metro was wonderful. It was a list of my crimes against political correctness. But anyway,
remember when they say anti-feminist, I think they're using that in a derogative term, that can you believe he's anti-feminist?
I think they think that, but I think they don't realise that most of the country is pretty much anti-feminist, When you wheel a feminist out and then get them to give their opinions, most of the country kind of recoils and says, okay, that's not for me, So they can keep saying anti-feminist. I'll own that. But anyway, Adam, thank you so much, man. And honestly, best of luck.
Thank you, Carl, and you too.